So to come across this and to hear it approached from a parallel but different discipline was fascinating. Now, feeling as primordial or radical nature. I've taken the word primordial because he uses that in the book, although it's not in any of the quotes that we use here. He uses the word in its correct sense. It actually means that the primal part means first, and the ordial literally means the sequence, the order, the presentation form. It comes from the Latin ordo, which is to do with literally the woof of threads in sequence, in order, in presentation. So it's the first presented thing, in other words. The first thing we're aware of is the way I'm translating it in primordial. Radical means the root or the origin, and he's used that word in the title. So he's considering the root or the origin of nature to be feeling, a feeling state, a sentiency, an awareness of the world. Now, hopefully we're going to explore the ramifications of that, because nature is an interesting word, because the way it's done in the dictionaries, it's to do with birth and kinship and relationship, blood relationship, from which we draw characteristics. It's the focus, and I've got it written down here. And the agent, it's the focus and the agencies at work in the physical or external world is the description that comes out of Wilde. But I'm going to take you back to Halliday's, which I think is a little bit more interesting, because what he says is, I'm just going to move Mr. de Quincey across for a moment. I'll put him here. He looks too healthy for a philosopher, doesn't he? You know, I expect him to have thick glasses and stuff like that. Eugene used to break down nature as not, instead of Tur, he would put Torah. And that is the old word for a snake. It's actually got snake written in it. And by snake he meant it's sensuous spirit. So if we just put spirit, can't spell. So that's the snake or the spirit. And the Torah is the law. Or law, as he would often write it. It's the rotor, it's the rotation or the sequence of events of the snake spirit which is exploring life. So when he draws that pattern of the energy coming in, making a turn and going out, the turn it makes, the roll is the law, or the rotor is the rotation, is the sequence of events which happen when that energy chooses to do something repetitious. Okay? It repeats itself, it rolls, and all these words roll, roar, a rotor, Torah are all concealed in literally in the consonants you can see there. And that's the sequence of events, and that is nature for us in our universe. And any other universe, the nature would be the way that energy had bound itself up, and then the energy breaks into pieces, breaks into parts. Essentially it breaks up into little wheels inside the big wheel, and they roll, and inside those there's little wheels inside that, and inside those there's little wheels inside that, which is very relevant to what we'll be talking about tonight. So that sequence, the snake, the natura, is literally the radical thing, is the root of that particular snake, that spirit, that sensuous energy going into the world to experience itself. Does that make sense to everyone? Are we okay with that? So it's the energy going into things. When it binds itself into a sequence, into a circle like that, when it holds itself into a particular place, it then creates the law, the Torah, the rotation, the breaking down of anything of that particular piece into its different segmentations, and it then has a world with which to play. Outside the uncreated, inside the circle the created, and the created itself then starts to break into little seed forms or rotations of its own. Right, so that sort of is the is the origin which I would prefer to take to if I'm trying to analyse what the word nature means. It carries the other one, that's similar kinship. That nato part is the old Latin for birth. So we get from that we get the word nation, or people who share a common birthright. Nativity and all those words come from it. But that root is a little bit sort of more certainly complete. Now, I thought I'd start off with a really depressing piece, which is it's a piece written by Bertrand Russell, and it's, if you like, it's like an atheistical creed. I've read it once before. I don't know whether I've ever put it in one of the song sheets that have gone out. But de Quincey quotes it. He doesn't quote it all. I've added just a little bit on. But most of the quote is there. And it's a description, if you like, of the scientific approach, but it's looking at it in the long term. And he's looking at it in terms of the big picture. And it's quite a negative big picture that he presents. That man is the product of causes which had no prevision of the end they were achieving. That his origin, his growth, his hopes and fears, his loves and his beliefs are but the outcome of accidental collections of atoms. That no fire, no heroism, no intensity of thought and feeling can preserve an individual life beyond the grave. That all the labours of the ages, all the devotion, all the inspiration, all the noonday brightness of human genius are destined to extinction in the vast death of the solar system, and the whole temple of man's achievement must inevitably be buried beneath the debris of a universe in ruins. All these things, if not quite beyond dispute, are yet so nearly certain that no philosophy which rejects them can hope to stand. Okay? That's Bertrand Russell trying to cheer us up. I'm being flippant. He was a man of very deep convictions, and he put them down there very clearly as to what he felt. And the bit that goes on from that, which actually forms into more of a creed, is that last sentence is, only within the scaffolding of these truths, only on the firm foundation of unyielding despair, can the soul's habitation henceforth be safely built. So as far as he's concerned, you have to accept those tenets before you even can start to think of your soul's habitation, of a place for you to live in the universe. Having said that, we have to remember that he was a man of such convictions that he went to jail as a pacifist. He was in jail right to, I think, for 2 years in the First World War. He faced ridicule over his ideas about sexuality and crime and punishment. So he was somebody who believed very, very strongly in ideas of morality, etc. And they were not based on any sort of religious aspect or any sort of formulation other than pure humanism. So that's a thinking man's response to the, if you like, the scientific description of how the world is formed. And notice he goes into, he's making references there to the cosmos, the very fact that whatever we do here, ultimately the universe is destined to destruction. It will actually dissipate, or it will cease to exist. In other words, all the relationships which are formed by energy bonds will eventually equal themselves out. What they talk about in this is a thing called entropy. If you think that essentially for any movement to happen, energy is moving from where it's compacted to where it's not compacted. Like heat, it spreads out into places. From the intense heat, it spreads out into places. It moves itself about by terms of excitation. It spreads itself out to equal itself out. And ultimately the universe will equal itself out in energy. There'll be nowhere that is more densely energetic than anywhere else.